Hey, baby, you gotta wake and make with your boy, making money every minute. Johnny, money making me here. Hey, today we're gonna talk about how I went from a felon to a father figure and how my sons and daughters see me now. I can tell you this, it was pretty hard when I got busted. I gave my daughters everything they needed. My baby girl was still very young. My oldest daughter, I think she was about, Mika was about 8 or 9, and she just had everything. I got her everything, right? Whatever she wanted, she got. But I went to prison. It hurt her the most, right? And when I came home from prison, I couldn't make up for that time, but that I was gone. But I did my best to be the best father figure I could be in her life, right? And in my other daughter's life. But then I met my wife, and my wife had 5 boys. So I took those boys on as my sons also. And they, like, I tell them all the time, I say, your last name's not the same as mine, but and my blood might not run through you, but you're my son. All of them, they're my sons. So right then, at that point in time, I have 7 kids. And so I always talk about, hey, what a man does, this man does this, how do's and don'ts for men. And those boys, because they were in my life every day, made me live everything that I spoke. Everything that I talk about being hard work and getting up and having integrity and being unselfish and being true and trustworthy and loving and laughing and always learning and never giving up. All those things that I talk about, I live because my sons are watching. And my daughters too. I could easily tell them, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. But they took it, they could hear it, but they saw that I did it, and that was bigger. That was a big life change for them and for me, because they're just like, okay, Dad's not bullshitting. He's not being a hypocrite. He's doing this. Everything that he talks about, he's doing it. And even now, I'll ask my sons, when I shoot stuff and I talk about it, and I'm talking about the things that I do, or I'm talking how men should carry themselves, I ask my sons, I said, man, is there anything in here that I don't do? I said, if correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. And they do. They say, ah, Johnny, you're on point. So, again, from a felon to a father figure, one of the things that they hit me hard was when I was in prison. That at the time, remember, I only had 2 girls, and but there was always a statistic that they gave you. They said boys that their fathers went to prison have a 67% chance higher to go in prison because their father went to prison. And when I met my wife, I was like, unfortunately, their father, my son's father, their biological father, he went to prison, and I had to break that chain. I told my wife, I said, what that statistic tells me, it says 3 out of the 5 boys end up in prison, and I said, I can't have that. I said, I cannot have that, not with them. I love them too much. So I made it my life journey to make sure to raise those boys to be men. And now, like, sometimes every now and then we get those proud dad moments, right? Some of my boys, I see things that they do, and I was like, okay, hey, that's me. That's all me. But I have a 5-year-old little boy. All my other boys, they range from, my first 7 are from 26 to 18. And then that's 7 within those 8 years. And then my wife and I have a little boy, a 5-year-old. And so with him, it's, hey, just pouring all the love into him. He doesn't even know that Dad was a felon, was in prison. But the stuff that I teach about manhood and about being a father, about being a good man, being a Christian man, a God-fearing man, those are the things that I pour into not just him, but all my sons. Right? My grandsons, when they're here, it's the same thing. I pour into them. My daughters see me. I tell them, hey, this is how a man should treat you. They see how I treat my wife. She's my queen, and I said, your husband, you first of all, you need to be be able to be a wife, right? Be the woman that God's called you to be. And God will put a man in your life, a godly man in your life, right? The Bible says that, when a man finds a wife, it's a blessing from the Lord, right? So, it's been, hey, when we find a not just a good woman, but a great woman, hey, she's a blessing. I can tell you, my wife is our pillar of our family here in our home. It's funny, I just thought something like I shot a video earlier this week about, when I come home at times, my house is my safe place. When my wife is here, just sitting with her on the couch, the peace that she gives me, and just maybe watching TV, a little TV, eating dinner, snacking on the couch, just being with her gives me peace. And she asked me about that video. She says, why do you feel so at peace? I said, because I said, I'm with you. And I know as long as I'm with you, nobody can touch me. I said, but when I walk out that front door, I know God's on my side, but it's God, myself against the world. And we just got to keep on going, right? So now I got a little off track, but from felon to father figure, I want my sons and my daughters to see me as the best dad possible, and not as a convicted felon that's been in prison. God's changed me, so He knows my heart, He knows my mind, He knows what I do. All my intentions are well, and they're for my children. I put my wife first. First of all, it's God, my wife, and then my children. They know that very clear. And again, I want my sons to grow up to be like me, to emulate me. If they emulate me, they're Lord willing, they're doing something right. Because again, God, wife, children. So, men out there, hey, I got a personal book that's coming out here pretty soon. My personal testimony, my personal story. If you like that, go get that. And then I'm also going to have the Hustling 360